Good morning, podcasters and video vloggers, influencers, social media enthusiasts, and the general World Wide Web. I'm looking at a situation where I've always wondered why people in, say, for instance, South Africa and Zimbabwe are fixated with luxury cars, luxury imports like Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Porsche, Volvo, Ferrari, Lamborghini, and all those fancy cars. What I notice is that in the case in South Africa and also Zimbabwe, people are very much in admiration of those who acquire these cars. They are intrigued by the whole thing of absolute luxury while driving. Yeah, it's Lawrence here, just bringing you to another episode of one of my many African Diaspora Perspective podcasts. I remain skeptical. I see it happening all the time. Basically, those in their diaspora in general tend to just buy normal cars to go from A to B. But those Africans in the diaspora, like in the UK, they tend to hold similar values to Africans, and those in the Afro-Caribbean islands as well. And the situation in America is even more exaggerated. Americans have affinity for these very large, fancy American cars, large cars, high suspension, all the mod cons, the trimmings. And I ask myself, even Nigeria, when you look at Nigeria, why is everyone portraying, like in music, portraying all these fancy cars, living well, big houses, and just generally out of poverty? Is it a real trend, or is it just me seeing something unusual? How does it represent itself in other parts of the world where similar incomes give rise to the ability to own these cars, but people don't buy them and they just don't even think about them? Well, first of all, the issue here is that cars are a visible means of success in countries like Zimbabwe, South Africa, Nigeria. Wealth is difficult to display through other assets. So if you own farmland and shares and retirement savings or investment property, you can't show those off. People don't know that you're rich because you own a large farm or you have huge retirement savings. But a car, it says, hey, look, I've made it. I'm successful. I escaped poverty. It's a status symbol. Well, obviously the history of colonialism in Africa applies. Basically, economic and political power associated with imported European goods. The district commissioner drove a Mercedes. The mining executive drove a BMW. My own previous boss owned a Mercedes-Benz. The cabinet ministers, they all drive luxury sedans. And the businessman locally imports German cars. So that symbol of a European product hasn't disappeared after independence. Everyone wants a share of it. And many Africans who are wealthy today are first or second generation affluent. And economics have observed that these guys, for their first generation wealth, they spend differently from the wealth accumulated over generations, which is the case for instance, in Europe. So someone who grew up with very little derives great satisfaction from buying a luxury car, a large house, designer clothing. Wow. By contrast, family whose wealth spans generations prioritize different things: investments, businesses, trusts, appreciating assets, because they don't have to show that they've made it. Their parents and parents and parents made it already long before they were born. And that pattern found in many parts of the world. Cars, like I said, are visible displays of wealth. And you can't show your investment portfolio, your engineering company, or your retirement fund. Everyone sees the car. So if I drive my car around, you'll see me and you'll know that I have enough money to buy it and maintain it. And in Afrobeats, it's quite popular. Also in Amapiano. Artists normally reference Mercedes, BMW, Rolls-Royce, Lamborghini, Ferrari, even a song about Ferrari, Buy Me a Ferrari by Yemi Alade. If you want me, buy me a Ferrari. Well, even American rap has been doing it for many years. And British and Latinos do the same thing. But obviously, Australia is culturally different. Australia has stronger cultural norms of egalitarianism. If you don't know what that means, then you need to look it up. But, the wealthy Australians often just drive a basic car: Toyota, Mazda, Subaru, Ford Ute. And the country's social norms include what's called the tall poppy syndrome, where basically displays of wealth attract criticism rather than admiration. So if you look wealthy, people say, "What? Why?" And people earning hundreds of thousands of dollars, they just drive practical vehicles. In Australia, it's very common for people who work in fly-in, fly-out to earn hundreds of thousands of dollars and spend it on other things like holidays. I know Zimbabweans go on holiday to the US, the Philippines, Bali, Thailand, and so on, because that's where they are deriving their expenditure on holidays rather than buying a fancy car. So yeah, that's really how Zimbabweans have adapted to the Australian situation. And obviously, when people migrate, they adapt to local economic realities, where things like mortgages and education matter more, sometimes even retirement savings. And cars depreciate rapidly, and that's something they suddenly find out. You buy a luxury car, it's less important than financial security, because a car will depreciate and will be worth nothing. So the migrants become financially conservative because they have other priorities. And in South Africa, which has one of the highest levels of income inequality in the world, expensive goods become more conspicuous, and the status symbol issue becomes more important, and the comparison between rich and poor become more frequent. And you'll find that because people live in shacks, and once they earn enough money, they buy a car because they can't afford to buy a house. So they buy a car which they park at the shack, which is quite strange. It's a phenomenon only found in South Africa. And in view of all of that, I'd say basically the real situation is that depending on which part of the world you're in, your priorities change, and your financial situation allows or dictates that you look at other things other than conspicuous things like cars. No one in Australia looks at anybody's car. If they do, they just say, "Oh, Why the hell did he buy that Mercedes or BMW? What was the point behind that? When a Toyota will equally do the job. So, Africans don't necessarily have a love of expensive cars, but it's just visible status signaling, associations of history. Success comes with a visible means of showing it, which is a car. But as societies like in Africa become wealthier, those priorities will change towards investments, pensions, property, and cars will become more of a secondary item. Hopefully that day comes soon rather than later. And in my closing remark, I would say the important thing here is to value your life, to focus on your priorities, to look after yourself and your offspring's children, whatever you might have, and to make sure that your loved one's future is bright and that your life is also bright. I remain here, basically look forward to the next presentation, the podcast, and hope you had a great day and found the topic intriguing and fascinating. And scratch around and find out more that you can around this issue, which I find personally a fascinating topic. Thank you and have a good day.